The clock on the wall didn't just tick. In the dead of a Georgia night, it hammered. Every night for 7 months, the rhythm was the same. I'd be drifting in that thin, gray space between a dream and a nightmare when the floorboards would groan, not a random house-settling creak, a deliberate, heavy weight. I'd keep my eyes shut. I'd hold my breath until my lungs burned. And then I'd feel it. The shift in the air, the warmth of a body standing 3 inches from my face. I didn't need to look at the wind-up clock his daddy gave him. I knew it was 2:47 in the morning, and my husband, Otis Washington, was standing over me, just watching. He didn't touch me. He didn't whisper my name. He just stood there like a stone monument in the pitch black, breathing in my air. For 7 months, I lived in that silence. And for 7 months, I was too terrified to ask him why. I'm 91 years old now. My name is Hattie Mae Ellington. I was born in 1934 in Macon, Georgia. Back when the dirt was red and the rules were simple, you worked, you prayed, and you kept your mouth shut. I've lived through Jim Crow, I've lived through the wars, and I've buried more people than I care to count. People today, they see a wrinkled old woman, and they think my life was just a quiet stream. They don't believe the things I've seen, but I don't lie. I've never had the breath to waste on a lie. Before I tell you how it ended, how my life was shattered into 1,000 pieces on a Tuesday morning, you have to understand how I got to that bed. I married Otis on October 15th, 1955. I was 21. He was 26. In those days, in the country, you didn't fall in love. You were placed into it. My daddy and his daddy were deacons at the same Baptist church. They shook hands over a fence post and decided we were a match. I'd seen Otis maybe 4 times before our wedding day. He was tall, built like an oak tree, and he never smiled. My daddy said, that was a good thing. Said it meant he was a serious man, a man of his word. Our wedding day was a sweltering furnace. I wore my grandmother's lace dress, smelling of mothballs and cedar. I remember the sweat trickling down my spine as we stood before the congregation. I looked at Otis's profile, sharp, hard, unreachable, and I realized I was tethered to a stranger. We moved to a 50-acre patch of land near Cordell. Deep country, the kind of place where the silence is so loud it makes your ears ring. The house was 3 rooms of raw timber. No electricity, just kerosene lamps that threw long, dancing shadows against the walls. No running water, just a well and a heavy bucket. Otis worked the fields, corn, greens, sweet potatoes. I worked the house. I scrubbed clothes on a board until my knuckles bled. I cooked on a wood stove that turned the kitchen into a kiln. It wasn't a bad life by the standards of the time. We had food. We had a roof. But there was no tenderness. Otis never hit me, I'll give him that. But he never hugged me either. We were like 2 oxen pulling the same plow, heads down, eyes forward. Then came the girls. Ruth in 57. She was my rock. Quiet, steady, always watching. Ruby in 59. She was the light. Always singing, always climbing the pecan trees, always getting her Sunday dress stained with blackberry juice. And Pearl in 62, my baby, smart as a whip and twice as fast. Otis wanted a son. He wanted a boy to help him break the dirt. When the 3rd girl came, he just nodded, walked out to the porch, and smoked his pipe for 3 hours. He didn't hate them, but he didn't know them. 13 years we lived like that. 13 years of routine. I thought I knew the shape of my life. I thought the only thing I had to fear was a bad harvest or a dry well. Then came January 1968. It started on the 16th, a Tuesday. I remember because the next day was the prayer meeting and I'd been darning socks by the lamp. We went to bed at 9. Our mattress was stuffed with corn husks. It creaked if you so much as thought about moving. I woke up in the middle of the night. You know that feeling? The one where your skin prickles because you know eyes are on you? I opened my eyes just a crack. It was blacker than a coal mine, but I saw the silhouette, a massive dark shape blocking the door's frame. My heart did a slow, heavy roll in my chest. I thought it was a prowler. I thought we were being robbed. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw the shape of his head, the way he hunched his shoulders. It was Otis. He was standing on my side of the bed, right over me. He was so still he could have been a ghost. He stayed there for 10 minutes. I counted my heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. Then he just turned around, walked to his side of the bed, and lay down. He fell asleep in seconds. I stayed awake until the sun turned the window gray, my blood feeling like ice water. The next morning, he was normal. He ate his biscuits. He drank his black coffee. He talked about the fence that needed mending. "Otis," I said, my voice trembling just a bit, "did you get up last night?" He didn't even look up from his plate. "Nope, slept like a log. Why?" "I thought I heard a noise." "Just the house settling, Hattie. Don't be jumpy." But it wasn't the house, because the next night it happened again, 2:47 a.m., and the night after that, and the night after that. By March, I was a wreck. I was losing weight. My face was getting sharp, my eyes sunken. I looked in the mirror and saw a haunt looking back. The girls noticed. Ruth would look at me with those old soul eyes of hers, but I'd just tell her I was tired. "Are you sick, Mama?" she asked one afternoon while we were snapping beans. "Just the change of seasons, sugar," I lied. I felt sick for lying to her. But what was I supposed to say? Your father stands over me like a vulture every night, and I don't know why. By June, the fear had turned into a slow-boil madness. I started thinking Otis was sick in the head. I'd heard of men losing their minds out in the isolation of the country. Old Mr. Jenkins down the road started talking to trees before they took him away. Was that Otis? I tried to talk to the women at church. I'd drop hints. "Does your husband ever get up in the night? Walk around?" Miss Sadie just laughed. "Honey, if mine gets up, it's only to find the peach brandy or the outhouse." "Why?" I couldn't tell her. I was afraid they'd think I was the crazy one. The worst part wasn't the standing. It was the timing. 2:47. Every single night. It was like he had a clock in his soul. By July, I started sleeping with a hand on the Bible under my pillow. I was terrified that one night he wouldn't just stand there. I was terrified he'd have a pillow in his hands, or a knife. Then there was Ruby, my middle girl, my singer. She stopped singing. She started losing weight, too. Her little ribs started showing through her cotton shifts. She wouldn't play. She'd just sit in the corner of the porch, staring at the woods. "Ruby, honey, eat your grits," I'd tell her. "I ain't hungry, Mama." "Does your stomach hurt?" She'd just look at me, a look so full of dread it made my soul ache, and shake her head. I was so wrapped up in my own terror, so focused on Otis at the side of the bed, that I didn't see the shadow falling over my daughter. August 12th, 1968. The heat was heavy enough to drown in. The cicadas were screaming in the trees. I'd spent the whole day washing clothes until my back felt like it was going to snap. I'd made a decision. I couldn't live another month like this. I was going to find out what he was doing. I drank 3 cups of coffee that evening. I told Otis I had a headache and went to bed early. I lay there staring at the dark. I pinched my arms to stay awake. I listened to Otis come in, kick off his boots, and lay down. I listened to his breathing. The house grew silent, the kind of silence that feels like it's pressing against your eardrums. 2:30 came. My heart started thumping against my ribs. 2:40. I closed my eyes. I focused on my breathing. Deep. Slow. I let my body go limp. I had to be a perfect actress. 2:47. The bed creaked. The floorboards groaned. Creak, creak, creak. He stopped. I felt his presence. The air got heavier. He was standing right there. I could smell the tobacco and the sweat and the red Georgia clay on him. But this time, he didn't just stand. I heard a rustle of fabric. He was moving. He sank down. I heard the soft thud of his knees hitting the floorboards. He was kneeling by my head. My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could see my chest moving, but I kept my eyes shut tight. And then he whispered. His voice was a broken, jagged thing, not the voice of the serious man I'd known for 13 years. "Please, Hattie," he breathed. "Please forgive me." I froze. My skin went cold. "Forgive me for what I did," he whispered. His voice was trembling. I heard a wet, hitching sound. He was crying. Otis Washington was crying. I shouldn't have done it. I was desperate. The debt was too big. Debt? What debt? We didn't owe anyone. We were poor, but we were clear. $3,000, he sobbed into the quilt. 3,000. I didn't have it, Hattie. Silas Thorne was going to kill me. He was going to take the land. He was going to put us in the street. Silas Thorne, the wealthiest man in the county, a widower with a heart like a flintstone. I had no choice, Otis whispered, and the words that came next, they didn't just break my heart. They killed the woman I used to be. I promised him Ruby. The world stopped. The house, the wind, the crickets. Everything went silent. I promised him our girl. Otis was shaking now, his forehead resting against the edge of the mattress. I told him, when she turns 15, she's his, to marry, to have. He said he'd clear the 3,000. He said he'd leave the land alone. God forgive me, Hattie. I sold her. I sold our baby to save my own skin. I stayed still. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I felt like I was made of stone. It was 2:47, he choked out. That's when I signed the paper at his house. 2:47 in the morning. Every night since, I wake up at that exact second. I come here to look at you, and I want to tell you, but I'm a coward. I'm a weak, evil coward. He stayed there for another 20 minutes, weeping into the dark. Then he wiped his face, got up, and went back to his side of the bed. He fell asleep. I didn't. I lay there until the first light of dawn hit the floorboards. Everything made sense now. Ruby's weight loss, her silence. She hadn't just heard a rumor. She knew someone, maybe Thorne himself, had made sure she knew she was being raised like a calf for slaughter. The rage that rose up in me wasn't hot. It was cold. It was a frozen, sharp blade. When the sun finally cleared the trees, I got up. I didn't make coffee. I didn't light the stove. I went to the kitchen and I grabbed the heavy butcher knife we used for the hogs. I walked back into the bedroom. Otis was just waking up. He rubbed his eyes and saw me standing there. He saw the knife. He went white as a sheet. He scrambled back against the headboard. Hattie, what are you doing? I heard you, Otis, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like the wind through a graveyard. I heard every word you said at 2:47. He stopped moving. The air left his lungs in a long, shaky hiss. Sit down at that table, I ordered. I followed him into the kitchen. I put a piece of paper and a pen in front of him. Write, I said. Write that the promise is void. Write that you were under duress. Write that Silas Thorne has no claim to our daughter. Hattie, he has a signed paper. I slammed the knife into the wooden table. The sound was like a gunshot. Write it, or so help me, Otis, you won't live to see the sun go down. He wrote. His hand was shaking so hard the letters looked like spider webs. He signed it. Now, I said, grabbing the paper. Get the wagon ready. I didn't wait for him. I woke the girls. I didn't explain. I just told them we were going to Aunt Etta's in Atlanta. I packed one sack of clothes. I took the $20 I'd hidden under the mattress over 3 years of sewing. I walked out to the neighbor, Mr. Banks. I told him I needed him to take my girls to the bus station in Cordell, right now. Is everything all right, Miss Hattie? No, Mr. Banks, it isn't. But it's going to be. I watched that truck pull away with my 3 daughters. Ruby looked out the back window at me. I blew her a kiss. I saw the fear in her eyes start to crack, just a little bit. Then I turned around. Otis was standing on the porch, looking small, not like an oak tree, like a weed. Where are you going? He asked. I'm going to see Silas Thorne. Hattie, he'll kill you. He can try. I walked those 5 miles. The sun was a hammer on my head. My feet were blistering, but I didn't feel a thing. I walked up to Thorne's big white house. I didn't knock. I just walked onto the porch. He came out looking smug in his silk vest, smoking a cigar. Mrs. Washington, he said, leaning against a column, to what do I owe the pleasure? I didn't waste breath. I held up the paper Otis had signed. The deal is off, I said. He laughed. It was a dry, nasty sound. A deal's a deal, Hattie. I have your husband's signature on a legal debt. I don't care about your debt, I said, stepping close to him. I was half his size, but I felt 10 feet tall. If you ever mention my daughter's name again, if you ever look toward my farm or send a man to my door, I will go to the sheriff. I will go to the judge. And I will tell them exactly what kind of deal a 52-year-old man tries to make with a 9-year-old girl. They won't believe you, he sneered. Maybe not, but I'll tell the Reverend. I'll tell every woman in this county. I'll make sure your name is dirt in every house from here to Atlanta. I have nothing left to lose, Silas. Do you? The smugness left his face. He saw the knife tucked into my waistband. He saw the look in my eyes, the look of a mother who had already walked through hell and found it too cold. Keep the land, he spat, throwing his cigar down. Keep the girl. Your husband is a deadbeat and a fool anyway. He is, I said, but he's a fool who's leaving. I walked back home. My legs were like jelly. I sat under a pecan tree for an hour and just cried. I cried for the 13 years I'd wasted. I cried for the 7 months of terror. When I got back to the house, Otis was sitting on the porch with his head in his hands. I settled it, I said. He looked up, hope in his eyes. So, things can go back to normal? I looked at the house, the 3 rooms, the kerosene lamps, the shadows. There is no normal, Otis. Not with you. I grabbed my sack of clothes. I had $20 and the clothes on my back. I'm going to Atlanta. I'm taking the girls. Don't follow us. If I ever see you again, I'll finish what I started with that knife. I walked away from that farm and I never looked back. I spent the next 40 years in Atlanta. I scrubbed floors. I sewed. I worked 3 jobs at a time. But my girls grew up free. Ruth became a teacher. Pearl became a nurse. And Ruby regained her voice. She sang in the choir every Sunday until the day she passed away. She never had to worry about 2:47 in the morning. I'm 91 now, My bones ache and my eyes are failing. But every night when the clock strikes 2:47, I wake up. I don't wake up in fear anymore. I wake up, I take a sip of water, and I thank the Lord that I faked my sleep that night. Because sometimes the only way to save your life is to hear the truth you were never meant to know. If you're listening to this and you feel like you're trapped in the dark, if you feel like someone is watching you, waiting for you to break, don't you dare close your eyes. You wake up, you listen, and then you fight. My name is Hattie Mae Ellington, and that is the gospel truth.